The first scream came through the radio as a wet burst of static, as if someone had tried to speak with a mouthful of water. Elliot Vance had been alone in the cab of the downtown 6 train for exactly 14 minutes when it happened. The tunnel ahead was black in that ancient, swallowing way only New York tunnels could be. Brick, steel, cables, dripping mineral stains, and the kind of darkness that felt stored there on purpose. The digital clock over the console read 3:11 a.m. in thin green numbers. The train ran clean, fast, steady. No problems on the board, no warning lights, no dispatch alerts. Then the radio crackled. A woman inhaled sharply. Not the ordinary kind of breath a frightened person made before speaking, but a sharp, desperate inhale that suggested she had just surfaced from deep water. Then came a scream. Not loud, not at first, but close, intimate, dragged across the speaker grill with such raw panic that Elliot's hand slipped off the throttle. The scream cut out. A second later, the cab filled with a smell that had no right to exist in a sealed operator's compartment. Damp concrete, old pennies, and something sweetly rotten, like flowers left in a funeral home too long. Elliot straightened in his seat, pulse punching behind his eyes. "Control, this is southbound 6, Operator Vance. You getting interference on the line?" Only static answered. The tunnel lights flashed past in rhythmic intervals. Then, one of the forward cameras fuzzed white for half a second, and in that half second, Elliot thought he saw a face in the glass. Long, pale, and pressed flat against the outside of the front window, where no human being could possibly be. When the image stabilized, the track ahead was empty. He swallowed, forcing his voice back into his throat. "Welcome back to the channel," he muttered bitterly to no one. The phrase coming from a horror story podcast his younger sister loved. If you're listening to this in the dark, tell me where you're watching from. Like, subscribe, comment, and pray to God you never end up in a tunnel at 3:11 in the morning. He tried to laugh at himself. The sound died instantly, because as the train rushed under Manhattan, Elliot noticed something on the route board that made the skin on his arms tighten. The next station should have been lit on the line map. It wasn't. And somewhere behind the locked cab door, farther back in the sleeping body of the train, something heavy dragged once across the floor. For 11 years, Elliot Vance had driven trains beneath New York City, and in all that time, he had learned one simple truth. The subway never truly slept. It slowed. It dimmed. It became stranger after midnight, stripped of the daytime layer that made it feel civic and ordinary. But it never slept. At 39, Elliot wore routine like armor. He lived alone in a rent-stabilized one-bedroom in Pelham Bay, woke at irregular hours depending on the shift, shaved in silence, drank burnt coffee from a blue Mets mug, and arrived early every day with the same black lunch bag tucked under his arm. He liked systems. Systems behaved. They had rules. Tracks split where maps said they would split. Signals changed according to code. A train either had current or it did not. Air pressure either held or it leaked. Problems had causes. Causes had paperwork. That faith in systems had helped him survive the job. He had seen fights, medical emergencies, drunks passed out in the vestibule, teenagers surfing between cars, rats the size of house cats leaping from the roadbed. Once he had found a wedding veil caught under a seat at the end of the line, with no bride anywhere on the platform. Once he had stopped for a silhouette on the tracks that turned out to be a mannequin missing both arms. Once he had hit a shopping cart full of raw meat that someone had shoved into a tunnel mouth in the Bronx. The city was always producing new ways to be unwell. Still, Elliot preferred nights. Night shifts thinned the human noise. Stations felt larger then, their tiled walls more exposed, their century-old mosaics watching from soot-darkened arches. The fluorescent hum turned lonely. Advertisements peeled at the corners. Footsteps carried too far. At certain platforms, when there were no passengers at all, the empty benches lined up with such clean intention that the place felt staged, like someone had prepared it for a conversation that never happened. Tonight's route was simple on paper. A southbound run on the 6, light overnight passenger load. Nothing unusual in the service bulletin. No track work on his segment, no reroutes, no suspicious packages, no signal trouble. He had read the sheet twice anyway, signed it, and pocketed it. The depot break room had been half empty when he started. A cleaner named Marta had nodded at him over a vending machine coffee and said, "You got the Lexington line tonight? Don't like the air down there." Elliot had smiled without looking up. "The air down there's been bad since 1904. "No," she said. "Not bad. Wrong." He had almost asked what she meant, but another operator came in complaining about a malfunctioning heater, and the moment dissolved. There had been other small things. A rookie dispatcher upstairs had asked Elliot, too casually, whether he'd ever had a station drop off the board. Elliot told him stations didn't drop off. They got bypassed for signals, police activity, track conditions, or operator error. The rookie just nodded as if that answer failed to settle something. Later, walking the platform before taking the train out, Elliot noticed a maintenance gate hanging open where it should have been padlocked. On the tiled wall beside it, someone had scratched 3 parallel marks into the grime, deep enough to expose cleaner ceramic underneath. Not graffiti, too narrow, too deliberate. Claw marks, almost. He ignored that too. That was how careers lasted in the system. You saw things, you sorted them into categories, and if they did not affect operation, you left them alone. The first few stops passed as they should. A pair of exhausted nurses got on near the Upper East Side. A young man in a delivery jacket slept so deeply he nearly missed his stop. 2 teenagers with red-rimmed eyes and concert wristbands laughed too loud, then vanished at the next platform. At 2:54 a.m., the train emptied out almost completely. By 3 o'clock, Elliot had maybe 6 passengers left in the whole train. That was when the mood shifted. It began with silence. Not the normal tunnel silence. Never true silence, because rails sang and wheels complained and electrical systems whispered their constant metallic breath. This was stranger. At one station, the platform speakers cut out mid-announcement. At the next, half the fluorescent lights were dead, leaving sections of yellow tile marooned in darkness. A homeless man who usually slept on a particular bench every Tuesday night was absent, but his cart remained, parked neatly against a column with a blanket folded on top as if he had evaporated and left his possessions behind. Then there was the woman in the cream coat. Elliot saw her in the platform mirror while pulling out of Bleecker Street. Tall, motionless, standing beyond the yellow strip near the far end where the light barely reached. She wore a cream-colored coat buttoned to the throat, dark hair hanging straight, face turned toward the operator's cab. Nothing unusual there. Plenty of people stared, but when he checked the side monitors a second later, she was gone. At Astor Place, she was there again. Same coat, same posture, still too far down the platform, not boarding, not moving, watching. By the time the doors closed and he pulled out, Elliot felt the first small pressure of unease in his stomach. He told himself it was the hour. Fatigue made patterns out of strangers, cities repeated faces, coats, haircuts, gates. Then the radio screamed at 3:11, and the next stop disappeared from the board. Elliot's right thumb hovered over the radio transmit button. No response from control. He checked signal speed, normal. Brake pressure, normal. Traction power, stable. The train kept eating tunnel. The station after the current segment should have lit in the route display above his console. Instead, there was a brief flicker, as if the system had tried to render the stop and changed its mind. The line map glowed over every station except one. There was just a gap where the name should have been, a blank notch in the route like a pulled tooth. He leaned forward. That wasn't possible. Even on bypass orders, the stop still showed on the system. You didn't erase a station. "Control!" Elliot said again, voice tighter now. "Southbound 6 approaching." He stopped, because he could not say the station name. He knew this section of the route as well as his own apartment hallway. He could drive parts of it from muscle memory, eyes closed if that wouldn't kill hundreds of people. But as he tried to name the upcoming station, his mind slid off it. Not forgot, slid. As if the word had been greased. He could picture the mosaic, could almost feel the curve in the platform, could imagine the ugly support column by the third car marker. But the name would not form. the speaker hissed. Then, through layers of crackle, a man's voice whispered, "Do not open the doors." Elliot froze. "Identify," he snapped. No answer. Behind him, somewhere in the passenger cars, something knocked 3 times in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Not on metal, on glass. Elliot unlocked the interior camera feed and toggled through the cars. Car 1, empty except for a bundled sleeper in the corner. Car 2, empty. Car 3, a man in a Yankees cap slumped against a pole, head down. Car 4, empty. Car 5, the screen fuzzed. Elliot slapped the side of the monitor. The image rolled, snapped back, then showed a car full of passengers. He jerked back from the console. There should not have been more than 6 people aboard, but the camera showed at least 20 figures filling the benches and standing in the aisle, all motionless, all facing forward, all gray with poor digital resolution. Men and women in coats from the wrong decades, a child in suspenders, a woman in a hat with a veil, a transit cop with an old-style cap. None of them moved. The image had the grainy softness of archived footage. Then every head in Car 5 turned at once toward the camera. The screen died to static. Elliot's first instinct was procedural. He grabbed the incident pad, scribbled the time, the system anomalies, the voice warning, the camera failure. He wrote quickly, angrily, because writing made it tangible. Writing made it reportable. Reportable meant manageable. The tunnel ahead curved left. He should have begun reducing speed for the station approach. He did. As the train entered the curve, dim platform lights appeared up ahead, yellow-white strips interrupted by shadow. The station emerged piece by piece, columns tiled in dirty cream, a black station sign on the wall, a long bench, an emergency intercom box mounted beside a pillar. But the sign was blank, not damaged, not shadowed, blank. Every black enamel sign along the wall held a strip of polished darkness where the station name should have been. Elliot stared. His hands tightened on the controls until his knuckles whitened. The platform was occupied. Dozens of people stood waiting. They were too still. No phones glowed in their hands. No one shifted weight. No one paced, scratched, yawned, slouched, checked a watch, or reacted to the incoming train. They stood in old coats and rain-dark wool and business suits and old uniforms, some carrying bags, some empty-handed, all spaced with eerie neatness under the fluorescent lights. At the center of the platform stood the woman in the cream coat. This time she was close enough for Elliot to see her face. Her skin was colorless in the bad light. Her lips were dark and slightly parted. Her eyes reflected nothing. One side of her throat bore a blackened bruise in the shape of 5 long fingers. She raised one hand slowly and pressed her palm against the glass of the closed train door as the first car rolled past. Elliot felt his chest seize. The speaker crackled again, and the same whisper rasped through the cab. "Do not let them board." The train shuddered as it aligned with the platform. Elliot's training screamed louder than fear. Stations required stops. Passengers required boarding procedures. Doors did not simply stay shut without cause. The system would record any irregularity. Cameras saw everything. Control would want answers. Unless Control wasn't seeing this. Unless there was no station here at all. The wheels screamed lightly as he brought the train down to a full stop. Every figure on the platform stared into the cars. None of them approached the doors. Elliot's finger hovered over the door control. He could feel the habit in his tendons, the practiced flick that would release both sides of the train for boarding. Instead, he stared into the side monitor, on the platform monitor feed. The people looked wrong in ways his eyes had missed directly. A man in an overcoat cast no shadow. The child in suspenders was missing the lower half of his right arm. A woman near the stairs held a handbag so old it looked Victorian, but the hand holding it bent the wrong way at the wrist. Their faces were not lifeless. Worse, they were expectant. The woman in the cream coat stepped closer to the door nearest the cab. Her lips moved. At first, Elliot thought she was asking to be let in. Then he read what she was saying. "It's still behind you." A metallic scrape came from the roof of the first car. Then another. Something was moving along the top of the train. Elliot's breath stalled in his throat. The scrape advanced, slow, dragging, with a weight that pressed through steel and insulation. It passed over the operator's cab, directly above his head, accompanied by a wet trickle sound. The platform figures lifted their faces upward in unison. For one impossible second, Elliot saw reflected in the windshield above him the silhouette of something flattened against the roofline, long-limbed and jointed wrong, as if a human body had learned how to crawl like an insect and then been stretched. Its head bent downward toward the front glass. A face unfolded against the windshield. Not a real face. Too many teeth. Eyes sealed by thin, translucent skin. Nose reduced to 2 slits. The entire thing seemed soaked, shining with tunnel runoff or body fluid or both. It opened its mouth wider than any human jaw could manage and pressed its lips to the glass with obscene tenderness. Elliot slammed the throttle forward. The train lurched. He bypassed the station. The platform shot past. In the side monitor, the waiting passengers surged forward, not running but gliding, their feet almost invisible. Several struck the train with their palms as it accelerated, leaving dark, wet handprints smeared across the windows. The woman in the cream coat did not move. She only watched as the station disappeared behind them, her mouth forming the same words over and over. Behind you, behind you, behind you. The roof scrape stopped. Elliot did not turn around. He drove through the tunnel with every muscle locked, breathing through his mouth, eyes fixed ahead, as if concentration alone could hold the world in place. He told himself the next station would be normal, lighted, named, occupied by insomniacs and drifters and the real disappointing humanity of New York. But in the rear-view interior reflection of the cab glass, he noticed something impossible. The locked door behind him stood slightly open, and a black, wet footprint marked the floor just inside. The next station was named Lit Real. Its mosaic read Spring Street, exactly where it should have been. 2 passengers waited on the downtown side. A man dragged a suitcase up the stairs. A woman in gym clothes leaned against a column, scrolling through her phone. The ordinary sight of them almost broke Elliot's nerves with relief. He stopped the train and opened the doors. No one boarded. No one got off. None of the waiting passengers even looked at his train. Elliot frowned and checked the platform monitor again. The platform was empty. His throat went cold. Out the side window, he could still see the woman with the phone, the man with the suitcase. Yet on the monitor feed, there was only fluorescent glare, yellow tile, and litter blowing in the train wash. He closed the doors immediately and keyed the radio again. "Control, this is Operator Vance. Emergency. I'm experiencing visual discrepancies on platform and onboard camera anomalies. Possible intruder on equipment. Respond." Static. Then a new voice. Male. Calm. Too calm. "Continue to Brooklyn Bridge. Do not stop for unauthorized personnel." "Who is this?" No reply. The radio died. He considered engaging emergency protocol, bringing the train to a halt, securing the cab, using the trackside emergency phone at the next legal opportunity. But that would mean stepping out, into the tunnel, into whatever had been on the roof, into a stretch of track where an entire station had appeared nameless and full of silent passengers. He kept moving. The footprint behind him lengthened. At first, it was just one mark on the cab floor, wet and narrow, with ridges like bare toes dragged through grime. Then, as Elliot forced himself not to look but kept seeing it in the reflection of the control panel, a second print appeared farther in. Then a third. Whatever had entered the cab was moving very slowly. He couldn't hear it. That was the worst part. New York trains taught you to parse noise. The clank of couplers, the hum of power draw, the squeal of flange on curve, ventilation fans, door motors, track joints. Human motion always made some kind of sound. A shoe scrape, fabric rustle, breath. This thing moved in silence, except for the occasional soft drip. Elliot reached under the console and wrapped his fingers around the heavy metal flashlight operators kept for inspections. He did not know whether he intended to use it as a tool or a weapon. The interior cab reflection showed nothing above knee level, only the lower slice of the room and the footprints that kept lengthening toward him. At Canal Street, his hands shook so badly he overshot the stopping marker by 3 feet. He corrected, opened the doors, and watched the platform through the forward angle. 3 people got on through the middle cars. An elderly Chinese man in a flat cap, a woman with a stroller, and a young guy in a white hoodie with earbuds around his neck. Normal. Fine. Good. Then the young guy looked directly toward the front of the train. His expression changed instantly. He yanked one earbud out and backed away from the doors, staring at Elliot's cab as if seeing something stand just beyond the glass. The woman with the stroller followed his gaze, frowned, then grabbed the stroller handle and hurried back onto the platform before the doors could fully close. The old man hesitated a beat longer, eyes narrowing, and made a quick sign against bad luck with his fingers before stepping off too. The young guy stayed on the platform. As the doors sealed between them, he mouthed, "Nope." Then he ran. Elliot didn't need a mirror to know something now stood inside the cab with him. The temperature dropped sharply. Condensation bloomed along the edges of the windshield. A smell rose, not rot this time, but standing river water and iron. He tightened his grip on the flashlight and spoke without turning around. "If you're flesh and blood, you picked the wrong cab." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then a woman answered from directly behind his right shoulder. "I know this route." Her voice sounded ruined, like vocal cords scraped raw. Not loud, not threatening, merely present. Every hair on Elliot's neck stood. He turned. The cab was empty. No person, no figure, no intruder. Only the wet footprints ending less than a foot behind his chair. And on the inside of the cab door, written in moisture by a fingertip, 3 words. Missing since 1949. The train thundered into the tunnel beyond Canal. Elliot's rational mind was coming apart in layers. Hallucination, fatigue, gas leak. Carbon monoxide didn't fit. He wasn't in a house with a furnace. Electrical fault, some strange interaction of flicker, stress, and sleep deprivation. Maybe. But none of those explanations accounted for the message on the door or the passengers reacting to something behind his cab glass. He remembered, involuntarily, a story told in the break room years ago by an operator close to retirement. Back then, Elliot had laughed it off with the others. The story claimed that once every few years, usually in spring when runoff leaked through old tunnel masonry, one station on the Lexington line went wrong between 3 and 3:20 a.m. Its name vanished from signs and maps. Passengers waited there who did not belong to the current year. If a train opened its doors, one of 2 things happened. Either no one boarded and the operator lost several minutes with no memory of them, or passengers boarded and something else got off. That operator had called it the hollow stop. Elliot had thought it was old night shift nonsense, the kind of folklore any closed system bred over time. Now he wished he had asked more questions. He flipped to the passenger intercom circuit. "Attention passengers," he said, trying to keep his voice level. "We are experiencing a temporary operational issue. Please remain in your cars and do not move between them." A burst of static answered from the speaker array, followed by several overlapping voices. Not his passengers' voices. Dozens of whispers, all speaking at once. "Missed our stop. Let us in. We've waited so long. Please open the doors." One child's voice, clear among them, asked, "Is Mommy still on the platform?" Elliot shut the intercom off so hard the switch clicked. The train rocked through another curve. He glanced at the route map. Brooklyn Bridge City Hall was next. Last Manhattan stop before the line configuration changed. A staffed location, cameras, dispatch presence. Human beings. He only had to hold the train together that long. Then the lights in car 3 went out. The onboard diagnostic panel blinked amber. He toggled cameras. Car 1, dim but fine. Car 2, fine. Car 3, blackness. He adjusted brightness and saw shapes. The young man in the Yankees cap who had been sleeping earlier now stood in the aisle of car 3, facing the camera. Elliot had not seen him move cars. The man's cap was gone. His face looked wet, blurred by motion or impossible vibration. Behind him, every window on both sides of the car reflected not tunnel darkness, but a platform full of standing figures. The man stepped closer to the camera until only his face filled the screen. His mouth opened. A stream of black water spilled out. The camera died. Elliot nearly missed a signal. He corrected with a hissed curse and forced his breathing steady again. At the entrance to the next station, the tunnel lights behaved oddly. Instead of the expected visual rhythm of approach, they seemed too far apart, stretching the track into impossible depth. The train was moving, but the station ahead never grew closer. It remained a distant rectangle of light as if suspended beyond miles of tunnel. Then, without transition, the train was in it. Brooklyn Bridge City Hall rushed around him in a blur of columns and tile. He stopped hard enough for the couplers to clank. The platform was empty. No cleaners, no patrol, no dispatcher, no sleeping bodies on benches. A single maintenance cart stood abandoned near the middle staircase, one wheel slowly spinning. Every station clock read 3:11. Elliot opened the cab door and stepped out before he could change his mind. The platform air felt wrong immediately, too still, as if the station had been sealed off from the city above. He kept the flashlight in one hand and his radio in the other. "Hello?" His voice carried farther than it should have. "MTA. Anybody here?" No answer. His own train hummed quietly beside him, doors still shut. Halfway down the platform, the tiled wall near the old City Hall curve was wet with long vertical streaks. At first, he thought it was groundwater. Then he saw handprints embedded in it. Dozens of them. Some adult, some child-sized, all sliding downward as though people had tried to brace themselves against the wall while being dragged below. He raised the flashlight. Above the handprints, scratched into tile, were names. Not graffiti tags. Full names, dates. Lena Morano, 1949. David Kessler, 1962. Officer R. Wynn, 1977. Marta Ruiz, 1989. He stopped dead. Marta, the cleaner from the depot. His beam moved lower. Marta Ruiz. Entered 311/not recovered. His stomach turned so abruptly he had to grip a pillar. That was impossible. Marta had spoken to him earlier tonight. Unless the wall recorded different years, different people with the same name, unless someone was staging this with encyclopedic commitment and access to records that should not exist publicly. Unless... A soft squeak of rubber wheels made him spin. The maintenance cart had stopped moving. It was now 10 feet closer. Something sat on it beneath a stained tarp, human-sized. Elliot backed toward his train. The tarp twitched, not from underneath, as if something moved beneath the cloth, but from above, as though fingers had pinched it. He heard footsteps behind him and whipped around in relief so fierce it almost made him shout. A transit worker in orange reflective gear was hurrying toward him from the far stairs. "Hey!" Elliot yelled. "Over here!" The worker didn't answer. As he came nearer, Elliot saw the reflective stripes were old-fashioned. The uniform, too. The man's face was hidden by shadow cast from his hard hat. Water dripped steadily from his sleeves. He stopped 3 feet away. When he raised his head, the face beneath the hat was not a face at all. It was a smooth sheet of pale skin stretched from brow to chin without eyes, nose, or mouth. Yet when it spoke, the voice came from somewhere inside the head like sound forced through meat. "You skipped the stop," it said. The maintenance tarp behind Elliot tore open with a wet rip. Elliot bolted for the cab. He hit the door panel, threw himself inside, and slammed the cab shut. His hands flew over the controls. "Release brakes, power up, go!" Outside the windshield, platform figures were appearing one by one between the columns. Men, women, children, all standing where there had been empty air seconds earlier. Some were in modern clothing, some in clothes decades old. Some looked whole, others did not. The faceless worker approached the front window and leaned close enough for rainwater or tunnel seepage to streak the glass. "Once you miss us," the muffled voice said, "we ride with you." Something hit the side of car 3 from the inside. Then all the passenger emergency intercoms began screaming at once. Elliot drove. He drove with the skill of 11 years and the terror of a child. The train shot out of the station too fast. Warning chimes flashed, wheels shrieked on curve. He should have lost control, but somehow the train held the rail. The emergency intercom stayed live, voices layering into a thick, pleading chorus. "Please." Cold. "We were on the platform. He left us. Don't make us wait again." Then a new voice cut through all the others. Clear, female, familiar. "Marta Ruiz to Operator Vance. Don't stop at Park Place. Don't look into the windows." Elliot's mouth went dry. He had heard Marta's voice an hour ago in the break room. The lights flickered, and every window in the tunnel outside the train, because that was what they suddenly looked like. Windows set into the tunnel wall where only brick should have been, filled with faces keeping pace beside him. Past Brooklyn Bridge, the line should have entered a known sequence of track geometry, signals, and stations Elliot could have mapped in his sleep. Instead, the tunnel became a kind of moving architecture of contradictions. Signal lamps glowed where no signals existed. Dead service alcoves opened into full platforms. Side passages yawned black as mouths. Along the right wall, ornate green tile flashed by in stretches that belonged to long-sealed stations from another century. The train was no longer strictly on the route. It was somewhere the route occasionally touched. Elliot knew two things with absolute certainty. First, if he stopped, the doors would open whether he commanded them or not. Second, something aboard the train was waiting for him to make the smallest mistake. The windows in the passenger cars had become dangerous. He knew this because he ignored Marta's warning once. A reflection snagged his eye in camera 2. The image of car 1 appeared normal except for one old woman seated at the far end, wrapped in a dark coat, hands folded in her lap. Elliot had not seen her bored. She looked solid, quiet, human. He almost toggled back past her until she raised a single finger and pointed to the window beside her. On the glass, instead of tunnel dark, another train ran parallel. It was an ancient subway car, riveted steel, grimy cream paint, old incandescent interior lights glowing weak yellow. Every seat inside it was occupied. The passengers there sat rigidly upright, all facing forward. Their skin had that soaked gray tone he now recognized. Some had dried blood in their ears. Some wore transit uniforms. A little girl in patent leather shoes hugged a broken doll to her chest. At the operator's position of that adjacent train stood a man with Elliot's exact build. Same shoulders, same posture, same close-cropped hair. As if sensing the camera, the other operator turned. It was Elliot's face, drained white, eyes sunken and black with sleeplessness. His mouth moved. Elliot muted the audio and still understood the words. "You already stopped once." A hand landed on Elliot's left shoulder. He swung the flashlight wildly and cracked it against the side panel. No one there, but his shoulder remained wet where the hand had touched him. All passenger doors flashed amber on the board. Forced door release. "No," Elliot whispered. The train began slowing on its own. He fought the controls. Overrode. Reapplied power. The system resisted like another operator's hand lay invisibly atop his own. Ahead, the tunnel widened into a station lit by weak amber bulbs instead of fluorescent strips. The black wall signs were blank. The platform was dense with waiting figures. The hollow stop had come back. This time, there were more of them. The train coasted in despite Elliot's efforts, brakes hissing softly like an animal settling itself down. The passengers on the platform stood shoulder to shoulder now, spilling beyond the proper boarding zones, packed under the columns and up the stairways. Some were translucent with motion blur. Some looked freshly alive. One still wore a paramedic jacket. A businessman clutched a briefcase fused into his hand by swollen pale fingers. Several children peered from between adults' coats with open, sleepless eyes. The woman in the cream coat stepped forward until she stood directly opposite Elliot's cab window. Up close, he could see the bruise on her throat more clearly now. It wasn't a bruise. It was a handprint burned under the skin, the fingers longer than human fingers should be. She tapped the glass once and mouthed, "It learns your face." Then the doors unlocked. Every green door light along the train lit at once. Elliot hit the lockout switch. Nothing. He dumped air. Nothing. The first set of passenger doors slid open with a cheerful mechanical chime that sounded obscene in the silence. No one boarded immediately. Instead, the platform figures inhaled together. The sound ran down the length of the station like a tide entering a cave. Then they moved. Not rushing, not attacking, just stepping on calmly, efficiently, with the practiced flow of commuters entering a familiar train. Their shoes made little sound. Their eyes did not wander. Some were dripping wet. Some carried tunnel filth on their cuffs. A teenage boy in an old basketball jacket had a strip of concrete rebar protruding from his stomach. yet he moved with perfect composure. A mother guided a little boy by the hand. The boy's face was backward, features turned toward the nape of his neck. Elliot watched in horrified paralysis as camera feeds filled, one by one, with the dead taking seats. The woman in the cream coat did not board. She remained outside, staring into the cab with an urgency that was almost anger. From the back of the train came a new sound, a dragging, jointed scuttle. Whatever had ridden the roof was now inside. Passengers in car 6 began looking upward. Then their camera feed vanished in a spray of static. Car 5 flickered next. Elliot caught one frame of impossible limbs unfolding from the ceiling vent. Skin slick black, fingers long enough to wrap a pole twice. A passenger beneath it lifted his face in reverence, as if greeting something holy. Camera gone. Car 4. The creature moved forward through the train with dreadful patience. Doors between cars banged open and shut. Overhead ad panels rattled. Glass spiderwebbed under pressure from the wrong side. Yet the ghost passengers stayed seated or standing in eerie calm, eyes tracking its progress toward the operator's cab. The woman outside the train slammed both palms against the cab glass. Her mouth formed words again. "You have to let one off," Elliot understood with a horrible jolt. The hollow stop wasn't a station trying to board the living world. It was an exchange point. Those who were taken waited there, and the thing moving through his train, the thing that had worn voices and faces and warnings, needed a place to disembark. The faceless worker's words returned to him. "Once you miss us, we ride with you." He had skipped the stop. He had trapped it on board. Now it wanted out. But if it got off into the station, what then? Would it stay there until another operator missed the stop? Would it keep feeding? Was there any difference between releasing it and keeping it with him? A scream tore through car 3, real and alive this time. One of his actual passengers. The onboard speakers carried it clearly. A man shouting, feet scrambling, then a choking noise. Elliot toggled camera 3. The old woman in the dark coat was gone. In her place, a young Hispanic man in work boots, one of his real passengers, was crawling over seats, face bloodless with terror, staring at something just above the camera. Behind him, the dead commuters remained unnaturally still, their heads tilted in unison as if enjoying a show. From the top edge of the frame, a hand descended. Not a hand. A cluster of hands fused at the wrist, fingers flexing independently. They closed over the man's skull and lifted. The camera cut. Elliot made his choice. He left the cab. He snatched the emergency brake key, the flashlight, and the long iron bar used for certain manual access procedures, then shoved through the interior cab door into the first passenger car. The air inside hit him like the inside of a crypt, cold, wet, and stale, with old perfume, mold, and mineral water. Passengers sat in silence on both sides, dozens more than the train should physically hold. Their clothes brushed his legs as he moved down the aisle, though many appeared not entirely solid. Every face turned to follow him. At the end of car 1, the intercar door stood open. Beyond it, car 2 sagged under impossible occupancy. Bodies filled the benches. More stood packed in the aisle. Yet they made room for Elliot as he advanced, parting with slow courtesy. Their skin looked waterlogged in the fluorescent flicker. Several mouths hung open as if mid-question forever interrupted. At the far end of car 2, he saw blood. Fresh blood. It smeared the threshold into car 3 in a hand-shaped streak. He went through. Car 3 was nearly empty. Only 5 figures remained seated, all dead in different ways, all watching the ceiling. Above them, nestled in the luggage rack where no human body could fit, crouched the thing. Up close, it was worse than glimpses had suggested. Human components were present, but rearranged with obscene inventiveness. Two too long arms ending in many jointed hands, legs folded backward like those of a praying mantis, ribs visible under translucent skin, a head with no eyelids, and a smile split nearly to the ears. Other mouths moved beneath the first mouth, opening and closing in the throat. Bits of clothing were embedded in its flesh. A transit patch, a child's mitten, a strip of wedding lace. Water dripped from it continuously. Cradled in one lower arm was the young passenger from before, or what was left of him. He was still alive. barely. Eyes moving, mouth trying to shape words. The creature looked down at Elliot with an expression of intimate recognition. Then it spoke in Elliot's own voice. "You stopped for me once already." The dead passengers exhaled together. Elliot swung the iron bar with both hands. The creature moved faster than sight. It unfolded from the rack, hit the floor, and the car lights burst in a shower of sparks. Elliot stumbled backward as claws or fingers or some hybrid of the two scraped his chest through the uniform jacket. Pain flashed hot. He drove the bar upward blindly and connected with something that cracked like layered shell. The creature screamed. Not loud, deep. A tunnel sound, a train entering station sound distorted through meat. The dead passengers all stood. Elliot grabbed the emergency brake handle by the door and yanked. The train slammed into full stop so violently that bodies, dead and living, threw forward. The creature hit the pole, lost its grip on the wounded passenger, and for a second the whole car dissolved into shrieks, static, breaking glass, and lurching motion. Elliot seized the young man under the arms and dragged him into car 2. Behind him, the dead commuters began moving at last, not to attack Elliot, but toward the creature. Their hands reached with desperate hunger, as if they had waited years for this exact opening. The woman in the cream coat appeared at the far window outside the stopped train, impossible in the tunnel, walking level with the car. Her palm struck the glass. "Now!" she screamed, voice finally audible. "Open for it! Close for them!" Elliot didn't understand until he saw several of the dead passengers trying to climb after him out of car 3. Not to escape, to follow the creature if it fled, to return. The hollow stop was not their prison alone. It was a barrier. He shoved the young man into car 1, slammed the inner car door, and ran back to the side emergency release in car 2. Manual operation, mechanical, not system dependent. The creature hit the door from the other side with enough force to bow the metal. Elliot wrenched the side door release. The doors on the left side of car 2 peeled open directly into tunnel darkness. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the darkness outside leaned in. It wasn't empty tunnel. It was the platform of the nameless station somehow aligned beside them again, though they had stopped in a tunnel segment between stations. Rows of waiting figures stood just beyond the threshold, the same silent passengers from before. But now their faces showed something rawer than expectation. Hunger. The creature shrieked from car 3 and hurled itself through the intercar window, splintering safety glass. Elliot ducked as those 2 long limbs scythed over his head. It landed in the doorway, half in the car, half facing the black platform outside, and the waiting dead swarmed it, not chaotically, purposefully. 40, 50 hands seizing wrists, ankles, jaw, hair, embedded scraps of clothing. The thing fought with blinding violence, tearing pale bodies apart. But every part it ripped away only became more hands, more faces, more weight. The woman in the cream coat reached it last. She drove her burned hand into the side of its throat and held. The creature locked eyes with Elliot over the mass of bodies. Its face changed, not into one new face, but many, flashing through likenesses faster than thought. The faceless worker, the drowned man from camera 3, Marta, the child voice from the intercom, Elliot himself. Finally, it settled into the face of the young passenger he had dragged away, but smiling. Then the platform took it. The dead pulled backward in one single coordinated motion, and the thing vanished into the dark beyond the threshold. The force of their retreat nearly yanked Elliot out with it. He slammed the door controls shut. The panels closed on grasping white fingers that dissolved like wet paper against the seals. Silence fell, absolute. No ghost passengers remained in car 2. No watchers at the windows. Only the injured young man moaning in car 1, the smell of ozone and blood, and the sound of Elliot's own breathing ripping in and out of him. Then, very gently, the station chime sounded. The train lights stabilized. Every system indicator on the board returned to normal. The route map showed the proper line, and the clock changed from 3:11 to 3:12. The next 20 minutes passed in a fractured blur of procedure and disbelief. Elliot managed to get the wounded passenger, name later confirmed as Luis Herrera, back into the operator's cab area and radio for emergency assistance. This time, Control answered immediately, sounding annoyed and sleepy and entirely normal. They reported receiving only fragments of his last transmission and demanded to know why his train had gone into emergency between stations. Elliot looked at the restored tunnel ahead, then at the blood on his sleeves, and gave the only explanation that would bring help fast. Injured passenger, possible assault on board. That was true enough. When they finally reached the next staffed platform, EMS and transit police were waiting. Luis was rushed out half-conscious, covered with scratches and in shock. He kept clutching Elliot's sleeve and whispering, "There were so many people. They were all wet. Why were they all wet?" Elliot had no answer for him. Transit police separated Elliot immediately. Standard practice after a serious onboard incident. They photographed the clawed rents in his uniform shirt, the bruising across his chest, the blood in car 3, the shattered intercar glass. They asked about an assailant. Elliot said he never got a clear look. They asked whether someone might have moved between cars. He said yes. They asked if the suspect left the train. He hesitated too long. One officer, older and broad-shouldered with a face like tired granite, watched Elliot more carefully than the others. His nameplate read, Wynn. That name punched Elliot in the gut. He remembered the scratched wall in the empty station. Officer R. Wynn, 1977. The cop must have noticed the way Elliot stared. "You all right, operator?" Elliot swallowed. "Your first initial R?" The officer frowned. "Raymond, why?" "Nothing." But something in Wynn's expression changed, subtle as a current shift. Not surprise. Recognition. Later, after EMS had cleared the platform and the train was taken out of service, Wynn found Elliot alone in a break room at the end of the line with a paper cup of bad coffee cooling between his hands. "You skipped a stop," Wynn said quietly. Elliot looked up. The officer shut the door. For a moment, neither man spoke. The vending machine hummed. Somewhere in the building, a mop bucket rolled across tile. Finally, Elliot said, "There was a station with no name." Wynn nodded once, unsurprised. "I was a rookie cop when I first heard about it," he said. "Old operator told me some places underground don't stay dead if enough people disappear there. City builds over pain all the time, but under the city, pain just sits." He rubbed his jaw. Officially, none of that exists. Elliot's hands tightened around the coffee cup. "I saw names on a wall. Yours." Wynn was silent for so long, Elliot thought he might deny it. Instead, he said, "My father's name." Elliot felt the room narrow. "Transit cop. Went missing in '77 on an overnight response. Family got told he slipped, hit live rail, body unrecoverable. No witnesses." Wynn stared at the floor. "Before he died, my grandmother said he came home 3 nights in a row and stood outside the building without coming in, just looked up at her window. 3rd night, he was gone for good." Neither man moved. "What was it?" Elliot asked at last. Wynn gave a humorless smile. "Something old that learned the shape of the system. Maybe it was born there. Maybe we fed it. Maybe every person lost underground gave it another hand to reach with." He stood. "Question is, did you leave it there?" Elliot wanted to say yes. He wanted that more than sleep, more than sanity, more than anything. But when he closed his eyes, he saw the creature's face changing at impossible speed before settling on Luis Herrera's features, smiling. "I think so," he said. Wynn did not look convinced. Before leaving, the officer set a folded paper on the table. Elliot opened it after he was gone. It was an old photocopy, badly degraded, of an internal memorandum dated 1989. Most of the text was blacked out, but one line remained visible. "In the event of timetable displacement at 311, operators are advised not to bypass unauthorized platforms. Boarding loss is preferable to transfer event." At the bottom, handwritten in blue pen, someone had added, "If you skip it, it follows the train." Elliot did not sleep when he got home. He locked the apartment door, checked every room twice, and sat at the kitchen table in his uniform undershirt until dawn pressed gray light through the blinds. Every noise in the building sounded freighted. Pipes ticking in the wall, a neighbor's television murmuring, footsteps overhead. He kept staring at the digital clock on the stove as if watching time itself for signs of damage. At 6:22 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You let the wrong one off. No image, no signature." Elliot stared at it until the screen dimmed. He tried to call back. The number did not exist. By noon, the official story had already begun settling around the incident like plaster. A violent vagrant, perhaps. A disturbed individual moving between cars. Passenger injured. Operator shaken. Investigation ongoing. Standard language. Wynn called once to say Luis Herrera was alive, sedated, and claiming he had been attacked by the ceiling. Hospital staff assumed drugs, shock, or head trauma. "Did he say anything else?" Elliot asked. A pause. "He says a woman kept telling him not to look out the windows." The line disconnected shortly after. Elliot showered 3 times and still smelled tunnel water. He threw out the ruined shirt, but when he opened the trash chute on his floor, he found the fabric folded neatly on top of the building garbage, as if someone had placed it there for him to reconsider. The claw marks in the chest were deeper now, almost like letters. He slammed the chute shut. That evening, unable to bear the apartment, he went down to the station near his building just before dusk. Crowds had returned. Kids in school uniforms, office workers, tourists with rolling luggage, a saxophone player busking off key near the entrance. The sheer mass of life in motion should have comforted him. Instead, it made him feel worse. Because every few faces, he thought he recognized someone from the train. A man in an out-of-style overcoat standing too still by a column. A little girl in patent leather shoes staring without blinking. A woman in a cream coat at the far end of the uptown platform. He pushed through the crowd toward her, heart hammering. But by the time he reached the spot, only a damp patch remained on the concrete, shaped vaguely like a hand. He stopped going to work after that. At first, the MTA called it administrative leave. Then, psychological evaluation. Elliot didn't fight it. Days bled together under weak spring rain. He kept all the lights on in the apartment at night. Sometimes he heard subway brakes in his walls, though his building sat too far from the line for that. Sometimes his bathroom mirror fogged after no shower had run, and words appeared in dripping streaks only to fade before he could fully read them. On the 4th night, at exactly 3:11 a.m., his living room lights went out. Not the whole apartment, just the living room. Elliot stood in the doorway holding his phone flashlight, listening. From the dark, something shifted softly on the floorboards. Then the glow from the street outside caught on wet footprints leading from the window to the hallway. One set, bare, narrow. He backed into the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife he owned. Furious suddenly. Furious at the fear, the sleeplessness, the invasion of his home by whatever had leaked out of that tunnel nightmare. He followed the footprints down the hallway to the bathroom. The door was open. No one inside. But the mirror was steamed over. Written across it in a fingertip line were 6 words. "I waited. You opened first." Behind him, the apartment intercom buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. His building's intercom had no camera, only audio. Elliot crossed the living room in numb disbelief and pressed the talk button. "Yes," static answered. Then, very softly, a woman's voice. "Wrong stop." He ripped the handset off the wall. From the stairwell outside his apartment came the sound of many feet ascending in no hurry at all. Elliot fled. He grabbed his keys, wallet, jacket, and nothing else, then ran down the back stairs and out into the wet street. Midtown dawn traffic hissed on asphalt. People moved around him under umbrellas, alive and occupied. He drove without destination until he ended up, inevitably, near the rail yard where overnight trains were parked and serviced. Some buried instinct told him the answer was there. The yard clerk on duty looked startled to see him but waved him through after Elliot flashed his ID and muttered something about leaving personal property on board. Rain glazed the rows of silent trains. Their windows reflected floodlights in long dead strips. Elliot found the consist he'd driven that night parked on a siding marked out of service. He climbed aboard. The interior smelled clean now. Disinfectant, damp metal, stale climate control. Maintenance had already scrubbed the blood, replaced the shattered glass, reset the emergency systems. No trace of the dead. No trace of the creature. No sign anything impossible had occurred at all. He moved car to car until he reached car 2. There, on the left side door frame, he had manually opened into the nameless platform. Someone had tucked a folded piece of paper into the rubber seal. His hands shook as he opened it. It was a child's transit map, the kind museums sold as novelty reproductions. Most lines were faded. One station on the 6th line had been circled in red pencil. No name written, just a blank dot. On the back, in careful handwriting, was a message. "Thank you for sending it back. It was wearing us thin." Below that, in different handwriting, jagged, deep, pressed hard enough to nearly tear the paper, were 4 more words. It didn't stay. The train's lights went out. Elliot froze. Outside, rain tapped the car roof. Then, from the far end of the empty train, a familiar scraping began. Slow, wet, moving across the ceiling toward him. He backed toward the door between cars, phone flashlight shaking in his hand. The beam caught the ad panel above the seats. The glossy poster surface reflected the aisle behind him. Something was there, not in front of him. Behind him, standing close enough to almost touch his back, it wore his face. Same eyes, same mouth, same scar by the chin from a teenage bicycle accident. But the skin hung too loosely, as if the features had been draped over a shape still deciding how human it needed to seem. In the reflection, the thing smiled before Elliot did, and in his own voice, warm and intimate, it whispered, "At 311, train 6 doesn't skip the stop anymore." The lights came back on. The car was empty. 3 days later, an unauthorized downtown 6 train entered the system just after 3 a.m. It appeared on internal monitoring for less than 47 seconds. No operator ED, no dispatch clearance, no listed departure yard. Camera footage later recovered from one platform showed the train slowing at a station where no station should have existed between 2 mapped stops. The signage in the footage was blank. The platform looked crowded, though enhancement could not produce usable faces. One witness, a cleaner assigned to that level, reported seeing a driver in the front cab. Male, late 30s, white, dark MTA jacket. She said he never looked at her. She also said that as the train pulled away, he raised one hand to the glass like he was trying to warn her. Officially, the footage was written off as corruption caused by signal bleed and timestamp error. Unofficially, Officer Raymond Wynn made one note in a personal file he kept locked in his desk. Vance no longer listed among active employees. Residence found empty. Front door open, bathroom mirror wet. Beneath that, he added the exact time the superintendent claimed he entered the abandoned apartment, 3:11 a.m. And on the last page of the file, Wynn taped the most recent overnight service report, where one operator on the Lexington line had scribbled a sentence in the margin before refusing to finish his shift. There was a man in the front cab of the southbound 6. He looked exactly like me.